the Heat and the Sixers. First game tonight. Sixers return home down 0-2 to the Heat. Heat are a 1.5-point favorite tonight. Total here is 210.5. Although this line did open up with the Heat a 1-point underdog. There has been news all afternoon about Joel Embiid possibly coming back. He's been cleared from concussion protocol and is doubtful for today's game, but that is actually good news for Sixers fans because he was out. So doubtful is actually a step closer to him playing than being ruled out, if that makes any sense at all. Alex, I know you don't want Joel Embiid tonight, but if he does play, what does this game look like?
Few things off the top. Upgraded to doubtful. If you're looking for the name of an NBA show, podcast, whatever, feel free to take it. Just give me like a little piece of the pie when you sell it. Upgraded to doubtful is just one of my favorite sayings, and it sums up the NBA and the injury nonsense all in one beautiful little package.
It doesn't make any sense, but it does if you know the projection.
Well, it's like Jumbo Shrimp. But anyway, you're right. I don't want Joel Embiid to play. If God forbid something happened to him and, you wear the mask, he should be okay. But if he gets hit in the head, it could really be a problem. And I want him to finish this year healthy. The Sixers are in a tough spot. This is a tough matchup anyway. They're already down 2-0. So you would bring Embiid back, who still has a broken thumb, which is a huge problem. You need your thumb to hold on to the ball. And we'll be out there with a mask for the first time, trying to adjust to that. And he's played with a mask before. He had this injury before, played with a mask after resting for a couple of weeks, giving it a chance to get set, as opposed to coming back for a couple of days. It seems really dangerous here. But if he plays, it's a nice spot for the Sixers here. You look at Miami on the injury report, everybody's questionable. I guess Butler and Bam, basically. Everybody besides them. Hero is questionable. Lowry, Caleb Barton, Strauss, who's had a nice couple games. PJ Tucker, who's a big piece in this series. So it could be a nice spot for Philadelphia, but it just enters so much uncertainty, and it's something we've talked about in these spots. We've got the Sixers coming back. They're down 2-0, so everybody wants to bet them kind of on that zigzag angle. Miami Heat are missing a bunch of players. The Sixers haven't shot well from 3 yet, and Joel Embiid might be on the floor. There's a bunch of stuff floating around, but everything, honestly, to me, points to an over. Whether Embiid plays or not, I think we're having a little bit of anchor bias in the market. One of the things you see in the playoffs, whatever the closing price for the previous game is the opening price for the next. And for whatever reason, this series just hasn't been bumped yet. There is a much higher pace than the market total seems to imply. The shooting has been better. So I'm just going to keep betting overs here. I know the first game went under, but you look at the shooting aberration for that game, it probably should have gone over more times than not. But with all the confusion going on, what I do know is I think we'll see a pretty quick game tonight. Whether Embiid's in or not, there should be a bunch of points.
Okay, so whether Embiid's in or not, Alex likes the over. Chris, whether Embiid is in or not, what do you like in this game?
Yeah, I'm going to take the Heat full game in this one again. And obviously, Joel Embiid coming back could be, obviously it's going to be a difference maker. Even if he doesn't play that well, he could be a decoy, right? He can at least allow the 76ers to mix things up a little bit on offense and take the ball out of Harden and Maxi's hands as much as it has been. So it's not going to be a bad thing, no matter, even if Embiid has a bad game. But I kind of love the angle that Joel Embiid is, if he does play tonight, I still like the Heat, and I could like the Heat even more, actually, because, a very physical team in the Heat, right, who I don't think they're going to take it easy on Joel Embiid. And now he has the mask on. He already has the thumb. We saw him playing cautiously when he had those injuries before, just the thumb, and now to put on a mask, which he's worn before, but still it can't be comfortable in any way. And I just like a lot of the things that I'm seeing from the Miami Heat. You look at that first game, they were horrible from beyond the arc, 25%. But what did they do? They dominated in the paint. Of course, that's easier to do without Embiid. But then the second game, they respond 48% from beyond the arc. They controlled that game in different ways, too. They can just hurt you in so many ways. And I love how they match up against the 76ers. Look, if there's any spot, obviously, for Game 3, a team down 0-2, returning home, this is the spot for Philly. I kind of like them early, so I think maybe some angles on Philly early is a good look. Coming out hot at home, Joel Embiid back especially, that I could see that. But a lot of these Miami Heat players that are questionable, I would imagine most of them would play tonight, especially the Tyler Heroes of the world, et cetera. And there's not a lot that I dislike about the Miami Heat right now. Even when they don't play their best basketball, they're still finding ways to win, and because they can beat you in so many ways. And Oladipo, the fact that he's coming back and looking as good as he is, he looks warmed up, he looks confident. A great game, too, after not doing much in game 1. So if he's going to keep on playing like that, the Miami Heat are even more formidable team. So I'm going to stick with the Miami Heat, but I wouldn't be totally shocked if the 76ers took this one.
The Miami Heat and what they're able to do in this series. I'm looking at the Sixers and what they're not able to do. So I'm going to play on the Heat tonight, -1.5 as well. But it's because the Sixers have been awful. I mean, they're going to have to improve in a lot of categories if they want a chance to. Why is that funny, Alex? They are.
Well, you're not wrong.
Yeah, if they
You're
want
usually
a chance.
just much nicer.
What?
That's something I say. Usually you're much nicer.
No, this is the playoffs. This is playoff hate. We're not nice during the playoffs. Okay, the Sixers have been shooting just under 22%. They're 14 for 64 behind the arc in these first two games. That's awful. Their role players have been completely absent. Danny Green, 8 total points throughout those first two games. George Niang, 5 total points. He fouled out in 10 minutes in game 2. So he can't play defense to save his life. He's just a liability out there. And Matisse Thybulle, now he's not like a huge offensive threat for the Sixers, but he's played 36 minutes and he's only shot the ball 3 times. You got to shoot more than 3 times, at least just to help the flow of your offense. So if all those things go great tonight, I mean, maybe the Sixers have a chance, especially if Embiid is back, but I don't think Embiid plays tonight. I don't think these things turn around for the Sixers, and I don't think James Harden goes off for 40, which obviously if he does that, maybe the Sixers have a better chance, but I don't see that happening at all. So I'm going to play the Heat tonight, -1.5. Alex, what are your thoughts? You're kind of like ooh and ahhing and laughing at me, and I want to know what you're thinking.
Well, you must not have watched a lot of Sixers games. I mean, I guess Thybulle maybe should shoot more than 3 times, but I'm not necessarily upset about that.
He doesn't. So he averages what, like 5 to 7 shots a game? But he
That
has
sounds high.
3 shots throughout 2 games. For your offense, for your spacing, for anything, don't you need to at least do something?
You would think so, but it's just when he's on the floor, he plays defense, maybe gets a few like tip dunks and stuff like that. Will occasionally shoot an open 3, but
Okay.
That's not his prowess per se.
Are you worried about Danny Green and George Niang being absolutely atrocious on offense?
I more feel bad that they're expected to play this many minutes. With all due respect to Danny Green and George Niang, they're nice players for 15 to 20 minutes a night, not for 20 to 30 minutes a night. I think it speaks to the whole sort of problem of the Sixers. As good as their top end talent is, they've wasted second round draft picks and first round draft picks for years. They haven't focused on giving enough minutes to these guys during the season. I mean, Paul Reed's a young player who, for some reason, is now finally just starting to play. He's a guy that, any good coach would have been, all right, 20 once a week, here you go, Paul. You're going to play 20 minutes a night. We'll rest and beat a little bit. Go in there and kind of do your thing. There's been no planning all year to sort of build to this moment, to train people to be ready for this kind of stuff. So here we are.
Which is why you're a big fan of Glenn Rivers. Chris, what do you got?
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, the stock on Embiid only rises more too, right? I mean, I think if this team doesn't have Embiid and it's a hard, everyone is there except for him, I don't think this is a playoff team. But Joel Embiid is just so great. I mean, and he attracts so much attention that, teams like the 76ers, who are pretty darn good throughout their roster, but no one really stands out, in my opinion, not even James Harden at this point. Everybody gets maximized when someone like Joel Embiid is on your team, because he can pass the ball, he can distribute. And when you got a big man up there who is able to attract so much attention, you talk about space creation, right? There's just so much more room for those creation of shots and for those outside shots. So it's just a big Joel Embiid problem, I think, too, right? If he's not in, the 76ers are just a tad inept.
And maybe that the way the Sixers are playing now without him in adds to his case for MVP this year. I know the voting is already closed and they don't count the postseason in MVP voting, but I mean, you talk about Jokic and he's the most important piece of his team. If he wasn't on that team, the Nuggets would stink. Kind of the same thing for the Sixers that we're learning in this postseason without Embiid. So Chris and I both playing the Heat -1.5, and Alex is taking the over to 10.5 tonight in Philly.